What's up guys, my name's Brandon, and today Apple released iOS 15 and iPadOS 15 to the general public after going through 8 beta stages over the past few months. And in this video, we are going in depth with the software to cover more than 310 new features and changes. And if you guys want to know the first settings you need to change and how to get the best battery life possible on iOS 15, I did also make separate videos for those two things, and those are linked down in the description below. But we have a lot to cover, so let's just go ahead and get straight into this update. So you can see here, the size of this update will come in around 3 gigabytes. That will depend on your device and the version you're coming from, but that is coming from iOS 14.8. And the official build number for iOS 15 is 19A346, so it is different than the RC build that beta testers got last week. And the modem firmware has also been changed to 2.09.10. So if you were having connectivity issues on iOS 14, those could be resolved with this update. All right, so now what's new here in iOS 15? And the first thing is actually inside of settings. So you can see over here we have iOS 14 on the left, iOS 15 on the right. It's going to be that way throughout this video, and you will see that there is now padding on the edges of the settings pane. So you can see that each panel, each little section right here does not go all the way across the screen like it used to. It's a little bit more compact. There's padding on both sides, and I think this gives it a more modern and clean look. We also get a brand new wallpaper as tradition, as we do with every iOS version. So if we go into our wallpaper section and then go to the stills section, you will see up in the top left, we have our lone iOS 15 wallpaper. Now we only have one right now, but we will likely be getting more in future point updates. But this is the exclusive iOS 15 wallpaper. Now, when you go back to the home screen for the first time, you might notice a few differences with a couple of the icons. So first off, you have to look really closely, but if you look at the camera icon, you will see that the shutter button is no longer there. So it's a little bit of a cleaner icon now in iOS 15. We also have a new icon for the weather application. So you can see weather right here compared to weather in iOS 14. It's just slightly darker, and also the sun has moved to the right side instead of being over on the left-hand side. And then we get an update to the maps icon as well. We also gain the ability to reorganize our pages on the home screen. So if you tap and hold on the home screen and then tap on the little dots down here, you will see that you can actually reorganize your pages now. So if you had the second page and you wanted it to be the first page, you can do that. So you can see on iOS 14, you were not able to do that at all. You could only hide pages. So you can now reorganize them in iOS 15, which is useful if you have multiple pages. You might have already noticed this, but take a look at the music widget up in the top left. So that is now changed because the color of the widget changes dynamically based on the album artwork. And it also shows specific songs when they're playing, not just the album like it did back on iOS 14. Now, if the song goes paused for a while, then it will switch back to this default red layout. But if we play the song, you can see it changes to now playing. So the music widget overall is just more dynamic, and you get more information from that widget. Now, one of the best new features in iOS 15 is called Live Text. And this allows your iPhone to recognize text in real time and type it out for you. So let me show you what I mean. So if you go into the camera application and you have some text, maybe on a book, maybe it's your homework, whatever the case may be, if you have text right there, you will see that your iPhone will recognize that, and you get this little live text icon down here in the bottom right hand corner. And so if we go ahead and tap on that, you can see these little brackets are around the text that it's picking up. So if I tap on that, you can see it will recognize that as text, and I can copy it straight from there. So now if I went into notes, I could just simply paste everything that was on the back of that book, or if it was your homework, whatever the case may be, you can do that now here in iOS 15, which is pretty awesome. And it does not have to be in real time either. You can actually take a picture of it. So if I just took a picture of this right here and then went into my Photos application, you will see in the bottom right hand corner, it shows that same icon, and I could tap on that and I could select whatever text I want to copy. So if I just want to copy maybe this first sentence right here, I could just do that, copy just like so. Or if it's in another language, I could also select it and translate right there in real time as well, which is really cool. And I think this is going to be a very useful feature for medical students, or maybe if you're out and about in another country and you take a picture of a sign, you can translate it in real time using your phone. There's just a lot of use cases for this, and live text is easily one of the best features in iOS 15. But that's not the only only smart photos feature in iOS 15, we also have a feature called Visual Lookup, which is a feature that will allow your iPhone to recognize and identify objects after taking a picture of them. So this can be with plants, with dogs, with cats, with books, whatever the case may be. So here's an example with a cat. All I have to do is just take the picture normally. If I swipe up on the photos, you will see that we have a little icon right here with a paw that says look up and it shows cat. Now, if I tap on cat, it will actually specify exactly what type of cat it is. And it's the same for dogs. It's the same for books. You can swipe up and tap on it to get a link to buy that book. There are a lot of different things that your phone can now look up. And here's a photo of a hibiscus plant. And if we swipe up, you can see it recognizes it as a plant. And if we tap on that, it will identify it as a hibiscus right there. So super neat. And you also notice that the eye down here has this little sparkle to it as well. So that's how you can tell that a photo has been recognized using this visual lookup feature. So if it doesn't have that little sparkle on the eye, that means that your phone was not able to identify whatever the object is. Another change inside of the camera application is the UI for QR code scanning. So you can see the UI is a little bit different. You can see it's yellow and it shows YouTube right there. So it actually shows me where that link is going to take me before I tap on it. And just the whole UI is different. It follows it around. And also when the QR code goes out of the frame, you can still get access to what was in that QR code with this little yellow icon down there in the bottom right. So it only lasts a couple of seconds after it goes away, but take a look at this. Once it goes away, you could tap on that and it will take you to where that link was going to take you or whatever it was going to do. You could also share it, copy it, add to reading list, or open in Safari. So really neat new additions there when scanning QR codes. Now you can also zoom in like you can on Snapchat or Instagram with the default camera application in iOS 15. So if you tap and hold on video right here and you start recording, if you keep holding right there, you can actually go in, zoom in and out like you can, like I said, like in Snapchat or Instagram, which is neat and something I know a lot of people have wanted for a while. Inside of the Photos application, you can now see in-depth details about a photo by simply swiping up. So if you swipe up, you could see a lot of details there. So you can see exactly which camera took the phone, which lens, the focal length, you could see the quality, the resolution, all of that straight from the default Photos application, which is really neat. And you'll also see down here, you have the little map where it was taken, but take a look at this button right up here. This adjust button will actually allow you to adjust the date and time that the photo was taken at. So if you wanted to change this for whatever reason, you now can in iOS 15. You can change the time zone and everything. And then if there's a face in the photo, it will actually recognize who that person is when you swipe up. So you can see you get this little icon over here on the bottom left. If you tap on that, it will show all photos of that person. In this case, it's me. You can review confirmed photos. You can feature less. So if you don't want this person popping up in your Photos widget or other places around on your iPhone, you could tap that to feature them less. And you could also say this is not who your iPhone thought it was. So that's also new in iOS 15. And if you downloaded a photo or a video from another application, it will now show you in that same section right there when you swipe up. So you can see it shows that this was saved from TikTok. And if I tap on TikTok right there, it will take me back to everything I downloaded from that specific application. Or you can also go up here and search for that application and see everything that was saved from that. Another really cool feature with Photos in iOS 15 is that unsaved photos will sometimes show up in your photo library with this little glyph icon in the bottom right. And that's only if they are sent to you via an iMessage and if you were present at the time that photo was taken. So this is really neat and it gives you the option to save it right there if you want to. Also, this People and Places album is so much more accurate than it was in iOS 14 with recognition. So sometimes in iOS 14, it would recognize the wrong person or just wouldn't recognize the person at all. In iOS 15, it is miles better. And then also if you go to the For You section right here and go to Memories, we now have a whole new UI for Memories. You also have Apple Music now integrated into Memories, so you could choose different songs. And just overall, the whole Memories section is a lot more cinematic and a lot better at identifying which photos belong where. So a lot of times it just flows a lot better than it did in iOS 14. I really like how Memories is set up now. We also have all new widgets for the App Store, for Contacts, for Find My, for Game Center, for mail, and then also for sleep. So all of those are brand new widgets here in iOS 15. Also, if we go to a stack over here, so we go to one of our stacks, which of course is where you can stack on multiple widgets and just kind of scroll through them like that to save some room. If you go to edit stack, we have a whole new UI here. So here's what it looked like in iOS 14 when you went to edit a stack, and here's what it looks like on iOS 15. So way better. And also we have a new animation for Smart Rotate. When we tap on that, you can see the little animation right there is really cool. We also have widget suggestions, which is new in iOS 15. And actually it will put widgets on your stack based on AI, just based on your schedule and what you do. Sometimes it can actually show something in your widget that you are really going to do anyways at that time of the day. So it's hard to explain, but maybe if you had like a meeting at 6 o'clock, at 5:30, it may show your calendar up here on this widget stack because it knows you're probably going to need to look at that, or you're going to need to be reminded that that is at a certain time. So that's new as well. There's also a cool little animation for that. So really nice changes to the stacks here in iOS 15. We also have a couple of changes to the Files widget. So you can see here, it's more transparent on iOS 15, whereas it was just white over here on iOS 14. Also, if we tap and hold on that, we actually get the option to edit the widget now. So before, we just got edit home screen or remove. We can now edit the widget, and with that, we could change the location of the files shown in the widget. So if you wanted to change that away from recents and just show specific files, you can now do that in iOS 15. And speaking of files, we also have the option now to lock a PDF in iOS 15. So if you have a PDF file that has some confidential information, you can lock that with a passcode. So you can see here, you actually have to enter in the passcode to view that PDF document. And when you view a PDF document in iOS 15, we now have a new layout. So you can see here, when you swipe over to the right, you get this little section over on the left where you can scroll through the different pages in that PDF document. We also have a few changes inside of the control center. So if we go down to the control center toggles down here, you will notice a few that are different. So we have new glyph icons for sound recognition. So right over here on the far right, sound recognition looks a little bit different. Also, announce notifications now looks different. It has a notification bell. It looks a lot better than it did over on iOS 14. And then the notes glyph icon right there also looks different in iOS 15. And then also the camera looks just like the one on the home screen. So we no longer have the shutter on the left-hand side right there of the camera. So a little bit cleaner looking. We also have some changes for what you can actually do with a couple of these toggles. So for instance, we have the text size control center toggle right here. And when you haptic press on that, you will see that there are some changes right here. So you can change the text size. Not only is it for everything now, you can actually change it for specific applications. So you can see, you can do it for the home screen only, or you can do it for all applications. And if I were to do this in a certain application, so for example, if I went into Twitter and then went to my control center and then did it again, you could see I could change that text size for Twitter only and not for every other application, which is really neat and a really nice customizability option. And then if we haptic press on the hearing toggle down here, you will see at the bottom, we have access to one of my favorite underrated features in iOS 15, which is background sounds. And if you tap on that, it will turn it on and you can change the background sound right here. So let me show you guys exactly what this does. So if we go into our settings and then to accessibility and then down to audio visual and then to background sounds, you could see right here, it says plays background sounds to mask unwanted environmental noise. These sounds can minimize distractions and help you to focus, calm, or rest. And that's exactly what I do it for. So I actually use this almost every night to go to sleep. So what I do is I just go into my control center right here, haptic press on the hearing icon, turn it on, and I change my volume or whatever sound I want to hear to go to sleep. And it helps me a lot get to sleep and kind of just, I don't hear anything outside or anything going on, which is really nice. It's also really good for focusing. So some people may want to use like a dark noise or a balanced noise for that. That way you just don't hear anything outside, especially if you have like AirPods Max or something with good noise cancellation. This feature is just really, really good. And this is a feature that used to have an application. A lot of people had to pay for applications to get sounds like this to run constantly. But with iOS 15, it runs in the background. All I do, like I said, is turn it on for my control center. I lock my device, I go to sleep, and it's still on the next morning. So you could also stop sounds when locked if you want to. So if you don't want this playing when you lock your phone, you could turn that on. But to me, I like having it on when my phone is locked. So really cool feature there called background sounds. And while we're in accessibility, if we go down to the very bottom, you will see that we have a new feature called per app settings. And if you tap on that and you add in an application, so like for example, let's say like the text size is really small, maybe inside of, I don't know, let's say it's inside of Safari, for example. I don't know. If we go to Safari right here, you can see you can change these different things. Like you can make the text bold, you can make the text larger, you can increase the contrast, you can do different things like reduce motion, all of that on a per app basis. So that means that it will not change the text size or it will not change your smart invert for any application except for this specific one. So for example, let's do Amazon real quick, and I'm gonna make everything bold. I'll make everything really large just to give you guys an example. I'll make the button shapes also on, and I'll just do smart invert so you guys can really see a difference right here. So everything is set for Amazon. Now if I go into Amazon, take a look at this. You can see everything is bigger, it's bolder, it's now black. You can see the colors, it's inverted. So it definitely works, but it only is in that application, which is the beauty of this feature. I think it's really cool, and that's going to be very useful for some people as well. Now, when we were in the control center a little bit ago, you may have also noticed some changes to the left of the brightness toggle, the main one being that the do not disturb toggle is no longer there, and that's because do not disturb has been replaced with focus modes in iOS 15, which is essentially just do not disturb on steroids. So if you tap and hold on that right here in iOS 15, you can see you get different options to choose whatever focus mode you want. So let's go into our settings and I'll show you guys what focus modes are all about. So inside of settings, you can see right here, we have focus. And if you tap on that, you will see some pre-made focus modes right here. You can see I also have a couple of custom ones that I've made myself. And you also have the toggle down here to share across devices, which I would highly recommend if you do have multiple Apple devices. So focus modes, the whole purpose of a focus mode is basically to just not allow people to contact you unless you let them while you're doing certain tasks. So let me show you guys what I mean. So if we tap on the plus right here, we're going to make a custom focus mode. So I'll just call this, let's just say working. So I'll just say working, we'll make it blue, and let's go on next. So when I'm working, who do I want to be able to contact me? So, maybe I want my coworkers only. Maybe I only want coworkers and family to contact me at that time. So I can just tap on add person and I can select the contacts that are just my coworkers or just my family. So then I have those people that are allowed. You could also do other people. You could allow calls from either your favorites, everyone, no one, or certain people. And you can also have this option down here for allow repeated calls. A second call from the same person within 3 minutes will not be silenced. So that's also a toggle that you can enable. I would probably recommend doing that. And so then you can allow or disallow contacts to notify you when you're in this focus mode. So I'll allow that to contact me. And then also we have allowed apps for notifications. So you can choose the apps that you want notifications from when this focus is on. So if you're working, you probably don't want any social media notifications. So I would recommend having your allowed apps maybe just be like Slack or anything related to like work. For this example, you would want notifications from, or you could just allow none. So if I remove all right here, I get no notifications from any applications. You also have time sensitive right here. So allow apps not in your allowed list to send notifications marked as time sensitive immediately. So you could do that if you want to, but in this case, I don't want notifications from any application because that would just distract me. So let's go to allow none. And it says your focus is ready. And then it shows our focus mode right here. So you can always change, who is allowed to contact you and what applications are allowed to send you notifications if you want to right here. Just simply tap on it and then add in the app or add in the person you want to be able to contact you right there. We do also have a couple of features here as well. So we have home screen. So you can hide notification badges on home screen applications. So if you don't want to be distracted by maybe badges on a application, you could select that. You also have custom pages, which is really cool. And this will allow you to have your whole home screen change based on what focus mode you're in. So basically, if you had like a work one and you didn't want any social media on your home screen, you could select just a certain home screen, and that's the only one that shows up when you're in that focus mode, so you don't get tempted to go into social media, which is really neat. And then if we go back, we have lock screen here as well. So you could dim the lock screen appearance. You could also show lock screen, show silence notifications on the lock screen if you want to. And then also down here is a really cool one where it is turn on automatically based on a schedule or an automation. So for example, if you tap on this and it's a certain time, if I get to a certain place, if I work at an office, I could do, enter this focus mode based on when I get to this location. You could do that. Or you could do it based on when I open a certain application. That's what triggers that focus mode, which is really cool. And then we have smart activation down here that says that it will automatically turn on this focus mode at relevant times throughout the day based on signals like your location, app usage, and more. So a lot of cool little automation features in here as well to turn on focus modes based on different triggers. And one of my favorite features about this new focus mode is focus status. So this will allow you to show other people in messages. So if you're both on iOS 15, you will see when one person has a focus mode enabled. That way they know that their notifications are going to be silenced, that you're busy, that you're not going to be getting back to them right away. So I have an example over here on my other phone. You can see when I'm in a focus mode, it shows this at the bottom. It shows Brandon has notifications silenced. So, if somebody is trying to text you, that will give them peace of mind knowing that you're probably not ignoring them, you're just busy, and that their notification was silenced. So you probably didn't even see it. And you can also change this on a per contact basis. So if you go over to messages and you go to a specific contact, you will see a new option here for share focus status. And if you turn that off, that means that person will not be able to see when you're in a focus mode. So if I go back to my other phone right here, you can see it no longer says that notifications are silenced. And then also when you go to the lock screen and you have a focus mode enabled, you will see that focus right underneath the time right here. And if you tap on that, you will get the option to change it or turn it off. Now also in the notification center, you will notice some changes as well. So anytime you're in a focus mode, it will group together the notifications you got while you were in that focus mode. So it's going to be separated from all of your other notifications, which is nice. So yeah, like I said, focus modes are like do not disturb on steroids, and I highly recommend you go in and set up your own custom focus. It's a very, very useful feature. Now, speaking of notifications, you could see that the notifications are completely different here in iOS 15. So first off, the notification cards are just more compact now in this new version. Also, you can see that the app icon is more defined and bigger over here on the left-hand side. Also, when a person messages you, like through the Messages application, you will see a little picture, their little contact photo pop up there on the left-hand side as well, which is very nice and such a small detail, but it makes a big difference in your notification center. And if we swipe over on the notifications right here, you can see we have this options section right here that gives us the option to mute for an hour, mute for today, or add to summary. You could also view the settings or turn off. So you have all these options now inside of notifications, whereas before, if you swiped over on a notification and just went to manage, basically all you got to do was deliver quietly or turn off or go to the settings. That was pretty much it. So you have a lot more flexibility now with your notifications, and I like the option to just mute for like an hour or mute for today. I've used that a lot. Very, very useful. And you're probably wondering what that add to summary feature is. Let me go ahead and show you guys what that's all about. So if you go into our settings right here, and then we go to notifications, you will see that first off, we have some changes here in settings as well. So if I show you guys iOS 14 over here on the left and notifications, you can see that it just looks different, even just straight away from the settings page right here. Now we do have this scheduled summary right here, which is pretty cool. And basically this whole feature, the whole point of this feature is to show you notifications that really don't matter at one set time throughout the day. Like for example, I got this little notification from Amazon saying, don't forget, a certain product is still in your cart. That's not really anything I need to know right away. So that's something I have in my summary that comes to me every single day at 6:06 p.m. So I don't get that notification at that time. Like it's not a notification that I get like an alert for. It's just silenced and it's put into my scheduled summary. So you can add different ones into here. So you can add different applications into here that are just not important. So anything you have, any application you have where the notifications it sends are not important, it may be worth it to have in your scheduled summary, and just kind of shows you what that summary looks like. It'll show you all of the notifications from the summary that day. So for me, it was just this one notification. We also have this option here for screen sharing. So you could turn notifications on or off while screen sharing, which that's through the SharePlay feature, which is not available in iOS 15, the initial release of iOS 15 that will be available later, but that is a new option here inside of notifications. We also have announce notifications now. So before, It was announce messages with Siri, but now it's announce notifications. And that's because Siri no longer only announces messages, Siri can announce multiple different types of notifications. So if you guys have AirPods and you use this feature in the past, it's so much better now in iOS 15. So it will tell you that you got a notification from certain applications. Like for example, if I got something free from Chick-fil-A, Siri would now tell me in my AirPods when that notification comes through. So it's pretty cool. You can use this for all these different applications, and Siri will notify you when you have a notification from another application, not just messages. Now, if we go into a specific application inside of notifications, you can see this top section looks different here in iOS 15. And that's because, of course, we have the scheduled summary, or you can immediately deliver those notifications. So for me, messages, I do want that to be delivered to me immediately. I always want to know right away when I get that notification. Also, that is time sensitive to me. So I always want to deliver the messages notifications immediately. So I have that turned on right there. But for example, if I went to PUBG, I could just set that to my scheduled summary because I don't need those notifications right away. So you could also edit the schedule right from in here as well. So just a lot of cool options with notifications now with iOS 15. Now, one of my favorite features in iOS is Spotlight Search. It's a feature that just allows you to search for applications quickly and just kind of get around on your iOS device very quickly. I use it every single day, numerous times a day. And now in iOS 15, Spotlight Search has been supercharged, and it's 10 times better than it was in iOS 14. So not only can you install and delete applications straight from the Spotlight Search, so if I search for Disney, for example, I can tap right here on the App Store Get button, and it will download whatever application I want from the App Store straight from the Spotlight Search. I never even have to go into the App Store to download a specific application. I could also delete them. So if I search for something like DraftKings right here, if I tap and hold on that, haptic press on it, I can delete the application straight from within Spotlight Search, which is crazy. And if I remove that from my home screen, so I just go ahead right here and remove app, remove from home screen, and then go back, I can actually drag this onto my home screen again. So if I tap and hold right here, I'm not able to do this properly, but there we go. You can see I can put it right back on my home screen straight from the Spotlight Search, which is just insane. And then also, we have much more rich search results now. So if I search for somebody that's like a celebrity, so let me just search for Tom Hanks, you can see right there, it shows all this information. And for example, here's what it shows in iOS 14. And to make things even better, if I search for something like cat, take a look at that. It's going to show photos now where a cat is in the photo in my photo album. And I can even do it for, let's just say car, for example. If I search for car, look at that. It shows all these different cars that I have in my photo library now. So that is awesome. And also when you tap on one of the car images right here, you don't even have to go into the Photos app. It shows you down here in the bottom right, that's where it's at. But you can actually go through these different photos without having to leave this section right here, without having to leave the Spotlight Search. So again, Spotlight Search, no pun intended, is supercharged in iOS 15. We also have some changes inside of the Find My application. So down on the bottom navigation bar, you will see that the Devices tab has a new glyph icon there, just slightly redesigned. Also, we have the little plus right here on Devices where we can add items or share location straight from there. We also have live tracking, so you could see where somebody is moving in real time. So you no longer have to wait 30 seconds to a minute for it to refresh on the map. You can now see every single second of where that person moves, which is pretty crazy. We also get notify when left behind, which is a really awesome feature if you have the AirTags or even if you just have multiple Apple products. So you can see right here on my AirTag called Backpack, this is the one that's attached to my camera bag. Notify when left behind. If I turn this on, you can see right here it says receive a notification when you leave backpack behind. This can be helpful when taking this item with you. So this is super useful, or if you put maybe an AirTag on your keys and you are going to leave a restaurant or going to leave somewhere and you got within a certain distance of those keys, you will get a notification letting you know that you are leaving that object behind. So again, this does also work for iPhones. I believe it's the iPhone 12 and newer you need, but again, it's only going to make sense if you have multiple Apple products to be notified when you leave an iPhone behind. And when we go to power off our device, you can see we get a new little button underneath of the power off slider right there that says iPhone findable after power off. And basically now in iOS 15, you're going to be able to track your iPhone even after it's powered off or if it gets reset. So if somebody stole your device and turned it off, you would still be able to locate it through Find My, which is awesome. But if you don't want to do that, you could also temporarily turn off finding. Now we also get a small but useful change when we take a screenshot. So now you will notice that the markup feature is not enabled by default. And that's a big deal to me because on iOS 14, when I would take screenshots and I would go to try to crop it, I would accidentally draw on the image instead of cropping it because the markup feature was enabled by default and there was no way to turn that off. But now you get the option to turn it on or off, and it's just not on by default, which is nice. And then also you'll see down here that we do have live text for these screenshots as well. So if you wanted to copy any of this text, you could do that. Another cool little thing you can do with screenshots is drag and drop. And this goes throughout all of iOS, not just for screenshots, but this is a cool little trick that you could do. So you could take and hold that screenshot right there, and you could put it in like a social media application, you could put it in your notes, or you could put it in like a message. So if I go to messages, you can see I could put this right here and it drops it in right there, and you could easily send that screenshot to somebody very quickly. Now, if we go into our settings and go to general and then all the way down to what used to be reset, now in iOS 15, it's transfer or reset iPhone. And when you tap on that, we have a completely new screen here. So you can see it says prepare for new iPhone. Make sure everything's ready to transfer to a new iPhone, even if you don't currently have enough iCloud storage to back up. So if we tap on get started right here, it'll actually tell us about what we should be doing. And the cool thing about this in iOS 15 is that you will get temporary iCloud storage to transfer data over when getting a new device for free. You could just borrow storage that you don't have for free. And it's just going to walk you through preparing for a new iPhone, which I think is awesome and definitely a much needed feature for people who are new to iOS. And speaking of iCloud, if we go into our iCloud settings, a small change here, you could see that it shows our iCloud storage plan on this main settings page without having to go into the iCloud section right here. And then another small change is if we go into our settings, general iPhone storage, and then go all the way down to the bottom, you will see that before on iOS 14, it was system and other, but now in iOS 15, it's iOS and system data. So just some minor verbiage changes there to be a little bit more obvious with what that data is instead of just saying other. And if you install beta profiles or any type of profile on your device, you'll see that that is in a new section inside of general, VPN and device management, and it's right here under configuration profile. So just a little new section there for that. Now we also have a lot of changes inside of the Maps application. So just on first glance, I mean, look at this. You could see a big difference in the amount of detail in iOS 15 compared to iOS 14 over here on the left. So there's a lot more detail, especially the more you zoom in. Like if you go to a big city, you'll be able to see a lot of detail on the road. You'll see things like trees and all of that, whereas you couldn't see any of that in iOS 14. Now also up here in the top right, you can see when you want to switch your maps, that icon has been changed. It used to be an eye. Now it's this little guide button right there. And if you tap on that, you will see that we have a new map style, which is for driving. So that is a new one, and it'll show you information like live traffic and things like that. And if we wanted to go to Walt Disney World, I can tap on this and you will see a new animation there when it kind of outlines the route to take. You will also notice that right here, it shows leaving now. And if you tap on that, you now see it says leave at and arrive by. So you can set leave and arrive by times to kind of give you insight as to how much traffic will impact your commute. So say for instance, you wanted to arrive at Disney World no later than, let's just say like 5:50. Say that's the time that you wanted to arrive, 5:50 p.m. And then you put it in, it will tell you when you need to leave to get there by that certain time. So that's cool. It says leave by 3:45, and based on predicted traffic, that's when you'll get there at that specific time that you specify. And then when we actually navigate somewhere, you can see that the sound and overview buttons are on the right-hand side now instead of being down here below like they were on iOS 14. Also, navigation is just much better overall in iOS 15. I mean, there's more detailed road information, like it shows turn lanes and crosswalks, and you even get weather warnings if you're going through somewhere where it's storming or flooding. And then if you type in a place to go, of course, you will see a lot of differences. So now you can see it used to say directions and then the time, but now it just shows the time in bold. So you can see a quick glance at where you're going and how long it's going to take. And then you can see it shows the hours open right there, shows the rating that's been moved. The rating, the little thumbs up and thumbs down has also been moved. And then also the photos have changed, so they're bigger and just a lot easier to go through instead of this small little section right here. Also, the add photo was an overlay before, but now it's down here to add a photo. The add to guides button used to say save to, but now it just says guides. And then as you keep going down, you will notice that everything just looks a lot better. The layout is just so much better and easier on the eyes. And then another really cool feature in iOS 15 is that you can zoom out to a globe view. So before on iOS 14, if you zoomed out, you could only go like not very far at all. You would never see a globe, but here on iOS 15, you can go around the whole world and see the globe. It's actually really, really cool. We also get some changes inside of the music application. So now when you tap on these three dots, we now have the option to remove from playlist. And if you go to the now playing screen and you tap on the artist name, you can see the menu pops up differently. It looks a lot more modern and clean. And then also if you go into the AirPlay menu, you will see that there's a bigger gap between iPhone and speakers and TV. And then also speakers and TV is more bold now. So it was less opaque before back on iOS 14. And speaking of AirPlay, AirPlay to HomePod is a lot better in iOS 15. It lagged a lot in iOS 14, and it's not perfect in iOS 15, but it's a lot quicker to transfer over to a HomePod than it was in iOS 14. And then you could also see music that was shared with you in a message down here at the bottom of the Listen Now section. It'll show every song that was sent to you via a message and who it was from. Now moving on to Safari, this is where you're really going to start to tell the difference between iOS 14 and iOS 15. And that's because the address bar that we've always known to be up top has been completely shifted and moved all the way down to the bottom now. So don't freak out. You're going to be able to switch it back to the top if you want to. If you don't like change, you could do that. Or if you just don't like it, you can do that. But give this a chance. I really like it. It took me about a month to get used to when I was beta testing, but you can swipe between tabs like this. You can easily kind of multitask and go between tabs in Safari a lot easier with that bottom bar. Also in iOS 15, you can swipe down to refresh a page, so you don't have to tap right here to refresh. You can just easily swipe down with that gesture. And also if you keep an eye on the address bar, when you start going down a web page, you will notice how it shrinks. And when you start going up, it pops back up. So I like this a lot. And then also when it shrinks like that, there's a feature called website tinting where this background will just blend in with the website and match based on the dominant colors of that website. So this website's white, so that's why you don't see any color right here, but there is a setting to turn that off if you want to as well, which I'll show in a moment. Now we also get tab groups. So if you tap and hold on the tabs icon right here, you will see a lot of new options here, including move to tab group. And if you tap on that, you can see I have two tab groups right now, which is just read and investing. And these are basically just like bookmarks. So you can move certain tabs to tab groups. And you can see all your tab groups as well right here up top. That's where it shows them. Also, when you access the bookmarks, it no longer takes up the whole screen. It's just half the screen, which I like a lot better. And if you want a quick and easy way to get to this tab view right here, this grid view, all you have to do is simply pinch in like that. And you can see all of your open tabs right there. And then if you go down to the two A's in the address bar and tap on that, there's where you see the option to show top address bar, and then it switches it back to the iOS 14 style, which seems outdated now in my opinion, but you can tap on that and then show bottom bar and change it just like that. So it's cool how quick you could change that. We also have a lot of changes to the start screen. So you can see here we have a lot more information on our start screen along with a custom background like we can do on macOS. So if you go all the way down to the bottom and tap on edit, this is where you can add in a background image, or you can choose one of the pre-selected ones right there. And then you can also change, you can enable or disable certain things to show up on the start page. And if we go into our Safari settings, you will see a couple of things in here as well. So first up, we have Safari extensions for iOS now. So you can see I have Kablock right here, which is a content blocker, like an ad blocker. And if you go to more extensions, this will actually open up a section in the App Store that is just for Safari extensions. So you can see a lot of ad blockers. That's pretty much all it is right now because it's so new. But you can actually install those now straight from iOS, just right in iOS. You don't need a third-party application or anything like that, which is awesome. Also, if we go down, you can see we have the tab bar. You can switch that right here if you didn't do it inside of the actual Safari application. You also have landscape tab bar. So if we go back to Safari, you will see that we get tabs just like you get on macOS and iPadOS. But if you don't like the look of those tabs being there, you can simply turn that off. You can see I no longer have those tabs right there. It's cleaner, but you don't get to see all of your tabs. We have allow website tinting right here, which I mentioned earlier. And then we have hide IP address. So you can hide your IP address from trackers, which I would highly recommend enabling this feature to hide your IP from these trackers. And then the final thing I wanted to show you guys in Safari is the ability to use live text to translate an image. So I have an image here of a Chinese street sign, and all I have to do is select that and tap on translate, and you can see it can translate that sign for me, which is awesome. So moving on to messages, there are a few changes in here that I think you guys will really like in iOS 15. So before, if you sent somebody a lot of photos, or if they sent you a lot of photos, the layout was simple. It was just a lot of photos in a row, just a big line of these photos. You could tap on one and kind of just, go through them and see which ones you liked and saved the ones you liked. Well, now in iOS 15, when somebody sends you multiple photos, it actually puts it in this carousel view so you can quickly and easily just go through the photos with a little flick of the finger like that. Now you can also tap on this little grid to see those photos in a grid layout. And then you get the option to download them or reply to the message by simply tapping on that. And if we go back, you can see that next to the photos, we have a little download button. And when you tap on that, it will download all of the images in one tap of the finger. So before, you would have to individually save all of them. Now it's done with one tap. We also have some changes when it comes to sending photos. So before, you'd scroll left to right to see your photos, but now in iOS 15, it's up and down. And then also if you go all the way up, you get access to your albums, whereas on iOS 14, you just got this view right here, and then you had to tap on all photos to see all of that. So it's a lot easier to access all of your photos now in iOS 15. And then also you could select the order in which photos are sent. So take a look at that. You can see it says 1, 2, 3. And if I remove 2, you can see it put this one as 2 and then this one as 3. So you can actually change the order in which photos are sent. Whereas in iOS 14, there was just a check mark and it just sent them all in whatever order. And then also on the right-hand side, you can see we have a little FaceTime icon. And if you tap on that, you have easy access to a FaceTime audio or video call. And then also when you tap on the contact, their name right there, you can see it pulls up their contact info right away. Whereas on iOS 14, you'd have to tap on it and then tap info. It was just kind of a pain. Now it's easier to access that in iOS 15. You also have the shared with you toggle right there and share focus status. Those are both new in iOS 15 as well. We also now get the option to pin links and photos. So if I pin that, it will now show up first on the shared with you section and in the details view. And then also if you go to the details of a group chat, you can see that the group chat is all condensed into one section and you can expand it if you want to, whereas before it was just a big line of everybody in the group chat. And to start recording a voice message, you could just simply tap on the voice icon right now instead of having to tap and hold before in iOS 14. And then of course we do also have new Memoji outfits and accessories. We also have some major changes to the FaceTime application. So it is completely redesigned from the ground up. We also have the option here to create link up top. And this is for basically, it's for FaceTiming people who are not on iOS. So if you have a friend who's on an Android or they have a computer, it's not a Mac, you can still FaceTime with them through the web browser by creating this link. And if you go into the control center on FaceTime, you also have video effects and mic effects. So you could turn portrait mode on, which will put a lot of bokeh in the background. It'll blur the background a lot. You could turn that on. You also have different mic modes. So you have standard, voice isolation, and wide spectrum. So if you wanted to change up the audio on your FaceTime call, you could do that there as well. Although I found standard to still be the best. And then FaceTime also takes advantage of spatial audio. So it feels like you're actually in a room with the people because the audio comes from the different section wherever that person is in the FaceTime call. And then inside of the phone application, whether you're on a phone call or a FaceTime audio call, if you tap on the mute button, if you mute somebody, you will now hear a system sound when you press it. Now moving on to the weather application, this is another app that has been fully redesigned from the ground up. So you can see here up top, we have this really cool animation that changes based on the current weather. So you can show rain, it could show snow, it could show clouds. It's really, really cool. And you can see some of these things that have changed right here. So you can see the high and low is bigger and more bold. Also the partly cloudy got moved down underneath of the temperature. And then right here, you can see that all of these new glyph icons are new as well for the weather. And if you go down to the 10-day forecast, you could see it just looks a lot better here in iOS 15. It's a lot easier to read. It's a lot easier on the eyes and also shows you more information. So if we go down a little bit more as well, you can see we have a temperature map now. So if you tap on that, you can see that we get temperature maps, and also you could use this for precipitation. So if you tap on this right here, you could check for precipitation. So you can see the radar around you and see where rain is and when it's coming. You can see you get the 12-hour forecast down here. So really, really cool. This of course does use Dark Sky, who Apple acquired. And if you tap on these three lines right there, you can see the precipitation for anywhere that you have saved to your weather. And then if we go down further, you can see that before in iOS 14, it kind of just laid it out. But in iOS 15, Apple took a card style approach. So everything is like in its own little card. It looks really, really good. You see all this information right here. Then also if you tap on these three lines down here, you can see you get a new animation and a new view for the weather and everywhere that you have saved right here. And then if you tap on the three dots up in the top right and go to notifications, you can turn on weather alerts. So if you enable this for your current location, you will get weather alerts for rain and snow. Like if it's about to start raining or stop raining, you will get that notification. And it's based off of Dark Skies, which Apple acquired, my personal favorite weather application. So it's very, very accurate with these alerts. iOS 15 also brings a lot of privacy updates, including Private Relay. So if you go to your iCloud settings, you will see a couple of new options here. So we have Private Relay and Hide My Email. So first off, Private Relay, you can read, it says iCloud Private Relay keeps your internet activity private. So basically it just hides your IP address and your browsing activity. And this works for both cellular and for when you're on Wi-Fi. So you can turn that on. You also get the option to select your IP address location. So you can maintain general location, so like roundabout where you are, or you can use country and time zone. And just keep in mind that this is in beta and you may have issues with it. When I used it, a lot of times it would just randomly disconnect and reconnect a lot. So I just like to keep this disabled for now, but once it comes out of beta, I will probably be using this. And then moving on to Hide My Email. This is another great privacy feature that basically creates alias email addresses and forwards to your real email. So basically if you want to sign up for maybe a sketchy website to download something, or if you're giving somebody your email address and you're afraid they're going to sell your information, then you could just have one of these addresses right here, and you can always create a new one and then just delete it whenever you start getting spam from that person. If we go into our settings and go down to privacy, and then all the way down here to record app activity, this is another pretty interesting privacy feature introduced in iOS 15. So you can see here, it says, save a 7-day summary of when apps access your data, like your location or microphone, and see when apps or websites you visit within apps contact domains. And so when you tap on save app activity, it basically just gives you this spreadsheet where you can go in and see. So Apple is working on a complete UI for this section right here. So at a later point in iOS 15, you might see a whole new UI in here. But for now, you have to download it and view it in a spreadsheet. But this is a really great privacy feature here as well. Now, one of the very first settings that you should enable in iOS 15 is inside of the Mail section in settings. And if you go to Mail and to Privacy Protection, you need to enable Protect Mail Activity. And what this does is it prevents email senders from tracking whether you open an email or not. So there are pixels in emails, especially sent by marketing companies or pretty much anybody these days. There's a pixel in there where they can see if you open the email or not and how many times you read that email. So if you do not want them seeing that information, enable this feature right here. And you also will not be able to see, or they will not be able to see, when you forward an email as well, because that pixel can also track forwards. Another major new feature in iOS 15 is the fact that we now have built-in two-factor authentication. So you no longer need another website or third party to have two-factor authentication. So if we go into settings and into passwords, and if we go to one of the websites, you can see down here, we have a new option for setup verification code. And when you tap on that, you can see you can scan QR code or enter setup key. So you can create your own two-factor authentication. We also have some new changes inside of the calendar application. So you can see here when we go to create a new event, first off, you can see the little placeholder text there now says location or video call instead of just location. And right here for the start and end times, you can see we have the little gray box around the times, and also September 19th, the date is also on the ends right there, whereas before it was just on starts. And when you tap on the time, you actually get the old school scroll wheel back. So we have the scroll wheel back here in iOS 15, which everybody loved. But if you liked typing in the time, you could actually just tap on that and type in the time there as well. So it's the best of both worlds. Before in iOS 14, you could scroll, but it was kind of weird. You really didn't have much room to do it. You basically just had to type, but that is new here in iOS 15. And then inside of the clock application, if you wanted to edit an alarm, before you had to tap on edit and then go into the alarm. But now in iOS 15, you can just simply tap on the alarm and it takes you right into there. And of course we have the scroll wheel, whereas on iOS 14, we had this weird configuration right here. And if we go into sleep mode and go back to the lock screen, you can see there's a minor difference here as well. So before it just put it into do not disturb while sleeping. Now it just shows that little sleep icon right there. Also in the status bar, we have a little icon here in iOS 15. So if you look up top in the status bar, there's a little bed next to the battery percentage. We also have some changes to the voice memos application. So you can see right here, we have these 3 dots up here, which basically just do what the 3 dots down here did in iOS 14. But now in iOS 15, we have this new section right here. And if we tap on that, you can see we can change the playback speed, we can skip silence, and we can enhance recording. So better quality is what enhanced recording is, and skip silence is a feature that you see in like podcast applications and things like that. So really cool. And you also have a little reset right here as well if you wanted to reset everything to default. We have some minor changes inside of the App Store application, and really only minor ones because a lot of the App Store updates are mainly just server-side updates that go out to iOS 14 and iOS 15. But one of the main features in iOS 15 that I like is if you search for an application that you already have installed, you can see it skips all of the photos and basically just gives you more room to see applications that are not currently installed on your device. And then also if you beta test applications using Test Flight, the App Store now indicates when you have a Test Flight version of an application installed. It will show it right next to it. We also have some changes to the Notes application. So we now have tags in Notes. So you could tag different notes and basically just filter notes by them. So if you tap on one of these, you can see all of the notes that are tagged with Apple, and you could also do it for other ones here as well. We also have smart folders. If you tap on the little folder icon down here in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see new smart folder. And it says select the tags for this smart folder. Only notes that include all selected tags will appear. So basically you just have a much better way of filtering notes in iOS 15. And you can also mention other people in shared notes. So if you have a shared note, you can mention somebody by tapping the @ sign and then their name. And if you do have a shared note, you can see recent activity by tapping on the 3 dots right here. And you can see show note activity. And this will show you every time somebody edited the note. So kind of like what you see in Google Docs. We also get a lot of the same features inside of the Reminders application that we got in Notes. So for example, we have the tags feature here as well. There's actually a button to tap that right there, and we can make a tag called test, and you can see all of them by tapping on that. If we go back to lists right here, and if we go to our tags, we can tap on the test one, and we can see all of our reminders that are tagged with that specific one. We could also create a smart list in Reminders as well by tapping on add list and make it into a smart list. So from here, you can filter it by tags, date, time, location, flag, or priority. And if you tap on the 3 dots up in the top right, you can see a lot of verbiage changes here. And then also if you go to the sort by section, you can see that you could sort it by earliest and latest first, whereas before you could not do that. And you can also share your list with somebody else. So just like you could do in Notes, you can now share your reminders list with another contact. We get some minor changes inside of the wallet application as well. So one of the main ones is the ability to hide expired passes. So you can see down here on the left-hand side on iOS 14, I have a ton of old passes from like 2019, probably 2018 as well, and I have nothing I can do with them. Whereas in iOS 15, you can see down at the bottom, it shows I have 74 expired passes, and it only shows my most recent ones right here, the ones that are still active right here. And you can change this in settings as well. So if you go to settings and then go to wallet and Apple Pay, you can see right here, we have a new option for hide expired passes. Also now when you go to your Apple Card, you have a little card icon up in the top right where you can tap on that to get easy access to all of your card information. Whereas before you'd have to tap on these 3 dots and then go all the way down to card information, and then you were able to see it. Also, the Apple Pay UI is much cleaner now in iOS 15 when you go to pay for something in a store. We also have a lot of new shortcut actions like set wallpaper, go to home screen, dismiss Siri and continue, and just a lot more in here as well. And when you tapped on the 3 dots in iOS 14, this is what you got, but now in iOS 15, you get this menu right here, this layout right here, where you can see details, you can see the privacy, you can see the setup. It's just a lot better laid out, and Apple really improved shortcuts overall in iOS 15. I don't use shortcuts as much as I should, as much as I did in the past, but if you use shortcuts a lot, you will notice a lot of changes, both UI and additional shortcut actions added here with this iOS 15 update. We also have some changes to the health application. So we have trends now in iOS 15. So it shows view health trends. So currently I'm not trending on anything because I've been lazy. I've not been exercising lately, but you can see it will show if you're trending in the right direction for different things. Like for me, I had flights climbed, steps, and walking plus running distance. So it shows my daily average. And obviously I'm not at the average, otherwise I would be trending right now. Also in iOS 15, we have this new sharing option down here in the nav bar in the middle. And you can see this is going to allow you to share your health records with doctors. So you can tap on share with your doctor, or you could also share this with your family member. So if you tap on share with someone, you will be able to put in the contact information of a family member or a significant other that you want to be able to see your health records. iOS 15 also supports digital COVID-19 vaccination records, so you can store your vaccine records in the health application, and you could also see test results. If you went and got a COVID test, you could see your results here in the health app in iOS 15 as well. We also have a new section inside of mobility called walking steadiness. So you can see here, mine has been okay for the past 6 months, so I'm not at risk of falling. So this is, vital information for somebody that's older and maybe they aren't walking as steady as they used to, and you don't want them to fall. So this can alert those people if they're walking bad and maybe they need to get in a wheelchair or something like that. And then if you go down a little bit further, you can see we have exercises that may improve walking steadiness, and you can go through this and kind of see some exercises to basically help your mobility and your walking steadiness. Now also in iOS 15, we're able to use Siri offline. So not everything, of course, nothing that relies on an internet connection, but you can see here, I went into airplane mode, but I could still ask Siri to do certain things. So you no longer need a network connection. So set timer for 10 minutes. So you can see simple things like that Siri will do. Turn off timer. So you can see Siri also has better context, so it maintains the context better of what you were saying. So this is something that Apple has really struggled with compared to other, competitors to Siri, but it is getting better in iOS 15 with maintaining context. We also have some changes inside of the Translate application. So you can see up top, we have some minor UI changes. So if you tap on the menu right here for Spanish, if you tap right there, you can see it opens up in a menu like that. Whereas before in iOS 14, it opened up a whole new page. And then also new in iOS 15 is this conversation tab down here. So conversation is a new feature in Translate that allows you to basically just conversate with somebody. If they're on the other side of the phone, they'll be able to read what you're saying and you'll be able to read what they're saying when it gets translated on screen. You could also change this to face-to-face. If it's not side-by-side, you could do face-to-face. So here's how you could see, they can press that to talk, you could press this to talk, and it will show what each other is saying. And then you have these three dots over here where you can play translations or auto translates. So I can see this conversation feature being very useful if somebody's in another country where they don't understand that language. And then the final change in iOS 15 is that you can now install software updates with only 500 megabytes of available storage. So this used to be like multiple 2 to 3 gigabytes, but now you no longer have to wipe your device before every iOS update if you're only on like a 16 gigabyte device, because Apple has said that you now only need 500 megabytes of available storage to install a software update. Now, when it comes to the performance of iOS 15, everything feels a bit quicker and smoother to me, especially with Safari. Just the whole UI, everything about iOS 15 just feels a little bit smoother than it did on iOS 14. And this has been the case for most people. So most people have reported that iOS 15 feels smoother and just a little bit quicker than it did in iOS 14. Now, of course, there are a few bugs here and there, but 95% of those issues were fixed throughout the beta stages. So there are still some bugs, but most have been squashed, which is a good thing. And of course, if you are facing bugs, just keep in mind that this is the first official release of iOS 15. This is just the initial release. So you have to expect it to get more stable with time, and it will. And when it comes to the battery life has also been solid, but to me, it's about the same as iOS 14, at least for now. So I'm sure that the battery life will improve with the next few point updates, like maybe 15.1, 15.2. We should see increases to the battery life, especially if you're having issues with like battery drain. But to me so far, it feels about the same as iOS 14, which in my opinion is a good thing. So now, should you update to iOS 15? And I say absolutely. I mean, there are tons of new features and changes in this update, and you're going to want to update as well if all of your friends are on iOS 15, so that you guys can both take advantage of features like live tracking and the Find My application, like all of the new FaceTime features, the focus mode features so you guys can see when each other are in focus modes and cannot be bothered. There are just a lot of reasons to update to iOS 15. There are really no downsides aside from a few minor bugs, which will be sorted out over the next couple of months. So anyways, guys, there you have it. Those are all of the new features and changes found in iOS 15. Now, of course, I do have other videos showing more hidden features. If you want to see that, that is linked up in the cards and down in the description below, and a lot of other content on iOS 15 as well, which you can find down there in that description. But if you guys enjoyed this video and all of the time this took to make, I would really appreciate if you gave this a thumbs up, and also please subscribe to the channel if you want to be updated on all iOS updates in the future. Also, be sure to leave a comment down below with your overall favorite feature in iOS 15. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.